Right. Good morning, everyone. Come on in, take a seat. Thanks for coming in so early. Let's look at some maps. Today, I'm going to be showing you the imagineRio platform, which is a digital atlas of Rio de Janeiro, and showing how it evolved into the cartographic platform it is today. First off, by way of introduction for myself, my name is David Heyman. I'm the co-founder and technical lead at Axis Maps. I'm originally from Washington, D.C., but now I call Litchfield in the West Midlands. And Axis Maps is a small cartographic design firm founded out of the University of Wisconsin about 17 years ago. So as a company, we're just learning how to drive, about to go off to college. And we did this with the goal of bringing the traditions of cartography to new media. We specialize in building bespoke interactive maps for clients covering a wide range of science and industries. Let's look at some of them now. First off, we do a lot of work in public health, especially at the state level agencies in the US. This is the Healthy Places Index map that we built for the Public Health Alliance of Southern California. It's used by foundations working to improve the community conditions that are linked to health outcomes with a special focus on racial equity and racial justice. As of today, it's been used to distribute over $800 million of grants to organizations using this application. We also do a lot of work with NGOs like the World Bank and the UN. This is the IPC. It's a standardized score to measure food insecurity across the globe. We built this interactive map here to show off and communicate the IPC scores on food security, but we've also built their analysis platform as well. It's the tool that they use when they go into countries and conduct these food security analyses. We also do a lot of work in digital history, including the imagineRio project that I'm going to show today. This is, oh, don't miss it. Do you see that explosion? I'm so proud of that explosion. This was a really small project, and I swear we used half the budget just tweaking that explosion there. This is one that we built for the History Channel for a documentary on Ulysses S. Grant, narrated by Leonardo DiCaprio. So that's one degree of separation between me and Leonardo DiCaprio. But we also work with a lot of academic researchers as well, and helping them kind of communicate their historical research. Sometimes we do get tired of building interactive maps, of coding JavaScript and working with databases. So we do still kind of go back to our roots, building static maps as well. This is a map of London that we built using just entirely type, by hand, laid all of the type on every single road, every single park, all of the Thames River by hand, hundreds of hours in Illustrator. And I'm sure some of you will understand that that is therapy. We also build a lot of mapping tools that some of you may be familiar with. The first off is ColorBrewer. Cindy Brewer developed the colors, but we built the interface that's used to browse the colors and find the right color scheme for your project. We've built the, unfortunately, now defunct indiemapper, which was a web-based tool built to help people make interactive maps. We unfortunately built it in Flash. Flash died, and so did, unfortunately, indiemapper. We've built this rather recent contours tool, which you can use to generate custom contours anywhere throughout the globe and download them as vector. It's used by a lot of graphic designers and people who do kind of wood carving art who want to bring topography into their work. Also, I want to put a special pitch in for our cartography guide. It's a practical web-based guide to the principles of cartography. Certainly no one here in this room needs to use it, but if you ever find yourself wanting to teach other people about what you do and the principles of your design, I really recommend the cartography guide. Right, that is enough. Let's get on to imagineRio and actually look at the reason that we are here today. First off, please connect to the Wi-Fi, get your laptops out, imagineRio.org. I'm going to be showing lots of videos, but whatever you can do to explore on your own, that's far better than me kind of talking through a static video. I won't be offended if I see your eyes down on the laptop, and I will assume you're looking at imagineRio instead of doing your emails. I want to start with the goals of the project. imagineRio started around 10 years ago with two researchers at Rice University in Texas. One was working on municipal water, fountains, aqueducts, and the other was working on the history of architecture. And they were both really frustrated by the geographic outputs of their research. They were doing this historic work, but then when it came to presenting the maps from what they were doing, they were kind of limited to OpenStreetMap or Google Maps or whatever was existing today. And with a city like Rio that's been changing and growing for 500 years constantly, it was really inappropriate to show their work in a modern context. So they contracted with us. We partnered together to build a temporally accurate base map of Rio de Janeiro by the year. 1500 to modern day, every single year, a temporally accurate base map of Rio. And before, I heard some shudders. Don't worry, I'll tell you about how we did that. We mapped the change. We don't map every single year. We'll get into the data collection stuff later. But it was a huge task. We learned a lot about how to collect and display that data. The platform then evolved into incorporating images. So we didn't just want to see the kind of planimetric views, the maps. We wanted to see how the city was imagined through plans and maps. And then we wanted to kind of have views of the subjects of these maps. So photos, watercolors, pictures of buildings, and georeferencing those by drawing not view sheds, but view cones that locate these images in time and space. The final evolution of imagineRio is into the platform that it is today. I'll discuss a bit more about that as we go, but just for the sake of this talk, when I say platform, I mean a collection of different applications, all based on the same data source. So as it exists today, imagineRio is still powered by that same data set that we built 10 years ago and have been working on today, but now there is a suite of applications all covering different uses and different purposes. So all of this wouldn't be possible without our collaborators and definitely funders. So it originally was a partnership between Access Maps and Rice University. In the later phases, we partnered with the Instituto Moreira Salles, which is a cultural institution and museum in Rio, in Sao Paulo, in Brazil. They provided us with loads of photographs, thousands of photographs from their collection, plus a lot of expertise on photogrammetry. And then finally, and most importantly, a grant from the Getty Foundation, which made this last phase of work possible through their generosity. Right, now let's look at the map itself, but I want to talk not in Portuguese. Is there a way to mute lovely Martine? There we go. Let me restart. Right. This is the imagineRio map interface. You can see at its core, it is a map of Rio de Janeiro. But what makes it special is its evolution through time. You can drag that time slider, and thanks to the new vector tiles, you get a very smooth animation. There's also this living base map where you can select one of these items to search for, and the base map adjusts to show and respond to your request and give you what you're looking for. It's integrated with a large image library as well, a lot of those images from IMS that you can search, and then combine with a searchable atlas allows you to see views that relate to the map. So because all of these images are referenced in time and space, we just searched for the Teatro Municipal, and now we're looking at images of it with this National School of Arts. And all that's located in time and space with a deep zoom image browser that allows you to zoom in and see fine detail, but also see where the image is and how it relates to the map as a whole. Now, the killer feature of imagineRio really is this temporal animation, this kind of the ability to drag that time slider and see the land change through time. Because it's one thing to say, okay, imagineRio has evolved. It's another thing to observe it and see it at that kind of 30 to 60 frames per second that we're looking at it there, and actually see the growth. And when you see it like that, it seems really organic and natural. It's not kind of this stunted thing. The other thing that I'm really, really pleased about in this map is what I call a living base map, which allows the map itself to kind of shift and change and respond to requests. I'm going to quickly rewind. You can see it here, where I can search and the map responds by highlighting the image. We no longer have this kind of base map and thematic layer approach where it's things on top of things. It's all one composed thing. When a user makes a request, the map itself responds to that request. Now, I wanted to talk very briefly about the data collection methods used in imagineRio. So powering imagineRio is a GIS database that stores 500 years of geographic data. And the methods we use for that could be an entire talk on its own. But I just want to kind of talk about 3 key findings that we made over the 10 years of this project. The first is we only map change. I mentioned that earlier. We only map change. So we don't map every single year. We map every single feature. And we map the year that that feature started to exist in its form like that. And we map the year that it ended in its form like that. So any map for a given year is essentially just a request to the database that says, give me every feature with a start date that's before the year I requested and an end date that's after the year I requested. And that allows us to maintain a database of historic features and request a map year by year by year, but without kind of having to duplicate everything over and over and over and over again every single year. And it also allows us to kind of see the difference. We can see what happened between 1950 and 1951. And we know this because we have the historic documents, we have the historic maps. So we have a map of 1950, we have a map of 1951. Anything that changed is reflected in our database. It does mean there's a lot of duplication. So a building that adds a new wing, that's then mapped as a new feature. But we can tie those together through names and other kind of feature IDs. The second big lesson was everything changes. It's not just the built environment, it's the natural environment as well. In Rio de Janeiro, entire hills, massive, massive hills, completely leveled, flattened to the ground. So because of that, all of our features need to respect our data. So even the contour lines that we use in imagineRio, they have start dates and end dates and can be mapped and changed and tracked over time. The third big lesson, and I think the most important to the success of the project, was that the map is a depiction of reality, and our data collection methods must respect that. We need to digitize from reality. We need to make sure that reality is the starting point and not another depiction of reality. If we're digitizing off a map, which may have been produced off a map, and on and on and on and on, there's a good chance that we're going to degrade and we get further and further away from the actual reality and the fabric of the city. So the method we use our historic maps, we georeference them, but then we use that as a reference. So that's just to locate the feature. We then find the feature on a current aerial image and digitize from that. So that means that in 1800 and 1700 and 1900, we're digitizing off the same source, and that prevents that kind of wobble that you get sometimes from historic georeferenced base maps. It makes sure everything is kind of standardized and retains some spatial integrity. Now, our data collection methods have evolved as well. This is from the latest part of the project. This shows Martin from IMS georeferencing one of the views, and he's using Google Earth to locate it in 3D space. And you can kind of see the great thing about Rio is you have these wonderful hills, these wonderful peaks, and it makes it really, really straightforward to georeference these images. But by doing it, by locating it in 3D space, we can generate a much more accurate view cone to go into the system. So as the platform evolved, one of the first ways we evolved it was geographically. So we took the imagineRio platform and we applied it to 4. I'll skip the audio. We applied it to 4 new cities. This is Houston, that is Brasilia, that is Rice University campus, and that is Beirut in Lebanon. So the first thing we did was take the platform and then move it to a new geographic location. This allowed us to kind of develop refinements, improve the technology, test it to make sure that the concepts we were using weren't just specific to Rio, could be applied elsewhere. But most importantly, it allowed us to get 4 new grants to continue working on the project. Because these grants, when you're working in digital history, these grants are the fuel for the engine, and we need them to keep coming in. I'm not pitching, by the way. We need them to keep coming in to keep working on these products, and this gave us 4 opportunities to iterate. There's also a major technical evolution. that happened in over the course of 10 years. And anyone who works in the web knows that 10 years is an eternity in time. That is probably, a lifespan of a technology is probably 2 to 3 years. So we're looking at kind of 2 to 3 cycles of major technological change. And the big one, of course, in interactive maps was moving from a server-side rendered raster tile to a client-side render vector tile. That was the massive change. And it's that change that allows that really nice, smooth animation to happen. So instead of loading a new set of PNG tiles for every single year, we load everything all at once, and then just let the client filter down and do the rendering itself. And that change allowed us to massively change our infrastructure. I won't go too long into this document because it's big and intimidating, but to simplify what happened is we went from one big thing to lots of little things. We went from one Ubuntu server running Mapnik and PostGIS and a Node application that was overstretched and held together with sticks and tape to lots and lots of little microservices. And each one of these services just does one thing. So while it does look more complex, the actual individual pieces are far, far smaller. They just do one thing and they do it well. This reduces our hosting costs because hosting costs go up exponentially. So it's much cheaper to host lots of little things than it is to host one big thing. It also reduces our complexity because it's a lot easier to maintain these smaller things. And then finally, it's built to fail. Each one of these pieces can fail and go away, and the system can remain up and functional. And that's designed that way because eventually we will run out of money. imagineRio will stop, but we still want that resource to exist. The design of the product evolved massively. I'm going to mute these next time. Lesson learned. Not just in the UX design, but the cartographic design as well. Some of this was to kind of respond to new trends on the web, but also to reflect the new functionality that we were building in. But most of all, and this is what I'm most excited to tell you about, is imagineRio became a platform. I think it's really important to remember when you're building an application, but also when you're just making any map, that map or that application is just one potential expression of that data. So what you build is just one possibility, and there's thousands of other possibilities. So as imagineRio became, so using the same data set, but targeting a different audience and using it for a different purpose. One of the most interesting expressions of that data was this application here, which is actually the interactive piece of something that we built for the Venice Biennale in summer of 2020. And everyone knows what happened in the summer of 2020. The Biennale didn't happen. So we had to completely go back to the drawing board. We originally were going to have this touchscreen interface with an immersive projector behind you. So you select an image, do the map, and then the image kind of wraps you around. But then in 2021, post-COVID, you can't have touchscreens. You can't have something in public that everyone is touching with their hands. So what we did was we completely changed direction, and with the help of the Venice Biennale, built this application using a Leap Motion controller. So what you see there that's actually a representation of my hand. The Leap Motion is a hand tracking device. And what you could do is you use gestures to control the map. So you use your finger to wind forward in time, wind back in time, and can actually kind of point forward to click on images. So we were still able to participate in the installation and have something there for the exhibition, but used a touchless interface to kind of bring imagineRio to the people and participate in that great exhibition. The narratives tool is another really interesting addition to the imagineRio platform. What it is it's essentially a simplified version of Esri story maps. This is what you can produce with the narratives tool. It's a scrolling narrative with text and images, but built on top of imagineRio. One of the reasons we decided to build this is because for a lot of researchers, both professional and venture, story maps is still too much for them. As soon as they get to the point where it says load your data, load a shapefile, that's it, they're done. So we needed to provide them with an interface that they could use. We also wanted to make sure we were taking advantage of the temporal aspect of imagineRio data. Now, this is the editing interface used for the narratives tool. You can see it's really simplified. We wanted to base it around PowerPoint. So it looks like PowerPoint, where you have these different slides, and then the map that allows you to set the time and the location and add annotations. But the result of this is a really impressive body of work, largely from people native to Rio, and exploring disparate elements of the city that didn't really have a place within the imagineRio platform proper, but were still stories that are interesting to be told and needed to be told using our data. We've added a few editing and crowdsourcing tools. This first one here is Snapshot, which is built by the, want to get the name right, the University of Applied Sciences in Western Switzerland. So this is their tool, and we work with them to integrate imagineRio data into it. And what you're doing is essentially georeferencing one of these images in 3D space. So you click the point on the map, and then you click where it relates to the 3D map on the side. And referencing in 3D allows us to create really, really detailed view sheds. It takes those little cones that we have and puts them completely to shame. And with the more detailed view sheds we have, we can ask better questions of our data. We can be more precise of what actually is shown in the photographs. And this right here is a bit of work that's still forthcoming. But this is a tool to actually allow people to create imagineRio style maps entirely on their own. This will be deployed with teams of researchers at universities, and it allows them to draw and edit vector data. And I'm going to jump ahead because I think this is really cool. It also allows them to georeference images right in the browser. So it's simple georeferencing. You can just kind of rotate and scale and adjust it to the map, but it's all done in the browser. So we can enable and empower teams of mostly students to collect this data and create their own projects without the need for expensive software. Now, finally, I want to talk about kind of how we've evolved in judging our success. So first, we wanted to build a tool for us, for the researchers. We were fulfilling our own need, scratching our own itch, so to speak. Then we expanded that user base, still focused on a pro audience, but now instead of historians of urban historians and architects, we wanted to bring in amateur researchers or photography enthusiasts. But now, after the final evolution of the platform and with the addition of these new applications, we really are targeting the public at large. And we're succeeding at it. We get 2,000 unique users every month at imagineRio and 20,000 page views. In November, we had our first user conference and had users from a huge range of industries, all who use imagineRio in their work. Media people, people who work at museums, journalism, city planning, even botanists who use imagineRio all came together. And I think that's a really powerful thing. When we kind of think about these new media for maps and what they're really good at, I think they're really good at reaching more people than we ever could before.
Como é que devia ter esse prédio no passado? Para tirar essa dúvida,
I am going to keep the volume up for this.
Que é um ato digital com evolução.
Especially Professor Igor on TikTok, who uses imagineRio to present his historic research to a wide group of kids. It's TikTok, they're teenagers. And he's using imagineRio to kind of make his point and craft this amazing narrative. And I think through reaching all these people, we've really succeeded with the project. We've taken a bit of data and we're communicating that out and spreading our message as far as we can. And people are using it for different things, but they're all finding a place and getting what they need and understanding more about their city, or not their city, just Rio in general, by using that map. Thank you very much for your time. Welcome any questions.
For underground structures like metro, railways, or tunnels. Think of Valletta as bringing the tunnel.
Yes, and this is something that we've talked about, and I have pushed back on consistently. So we have the layer. What we don't have is what I consider a cartography to display it that's still kind of truthful to the rest of the project. I think if we're able to take the next step forward, I think the next step for imagineRio will be integrating thematic maps into the main mapping application. So at that point, we can bring the underground maps in. We can also bring in a lot of census data or population data. And I think it'll have a home there. But still, the idea is like, show me the truth on the ground at a specific point in time.
What is the most used part of the map? Or rather, what is the main use of it?
So it depends. It depends who you are. If a lot of researchers just say, I'm doing something on aqueducts in the 1700s, get me a map of Rio in the 1700s, and I'm going to plot my stuff on top of it. You have a lot of people who are enthusiasts of photography and watercolors. And what we allow them to do by presenting those in a geographic space, they can browse those images, but then they can also do geographic searches. So if they're interested, the example I showed was the municipal theater. They're interested in that theater. They can kind of focus their view on that and then see all the images that that correspond to the theater. And maybe not ones that would show up in kind of an image library as tagged with the theater, but maybe just have a bit in the background or show the view if you were in the theater kind of facing outwards. Also a lot of students. Yeah. No, you.
I was wondering about the 3D cones that you use. How well would that work, this technique, without any nice skyline with big peaks?
Poorly. There is a reason that it was developed by a university in Switzerland. So yes, that is the one thing that Switzerland and Rio have in common. It is useful topography for 3D georeferencing.